like everybody has got a handbook for life and you didn't? Like it feels like you're constantly struggling and studying how to be human, how to talk, how to hold eye contact with people, how to present yourself in conversations, or simply how to communicate. Or maybe you've simply been told that you're too sensitive, you're too quiet, you're too intense, and you're too much. And now that you're an adult, you're asking yourself, why am I struggling so much? Why am I just different? Or am I autistic? And if that question has been sitting quietly at the back of your mind, then this video is for you. Today we're going to talk about autism. For a long time, autism was only identified in certain different ways. I think back in the day, people would identify autism usually mainly in boys, if they're struggling at school or if they're being labeled naughty. Autism just doesn't look one way. I am very passionate about this topic because I work as a registered mental health nurse, and over time, there has been an increased number of people coming in seeking a diagnosis of autism or ADHD. And people seem to have this sort of idea that autism is when someone is loud, or when someone is tidy, or when someone can't keep up to appointments, or when someone struggles in relationship. It can be like that, but autism symptoms also look like being the gifted child who usually burns out, being the shy girl of the group who prefers reading books over people, being the dramatic person with big emotions, someone who just couldn't simply sleep still when they were a child. I struggle with that till today. Like, I can't sit still. Like, I need to be doing something. And the thing is, many adults are now just realizing that they have autism or they're autistic because of society and so many awareness and books and social media, right? And we now understand autism as a spectrum and the different traits that it presents. And some people don't even realize they're autistic until they're like 30, 40, 60. And once they do, everything starts to make sense. And this is very, very sad to me, because in my line of work, I see a lot of people that come in when they're like 40 or they're 60-year-old, and they're saying, I think I might be autistic, you know, I've struggled in life with relationships or with work or just completing small tasks. And it's very sad, because once you then do an assessment and then you find that actually, yeah, you have autistic traits, and this makes sense why you struggle with certain things in your life, you can actually see a relief on their face, because it feels like they've really lived a life where they've struggled. They've lived a life where they have been labeled, oh, you're lazy, or you're too difficult, or this one just doesn't understand, right? Because you've had this undiagnosed illness that you could have had early support to help you navigate life. Or maybe simply your parents didn't know, you know, there was probably limited educational or knowledge available back in the day to help and support parents who had young children who were struggling with behavioral problems. Autism awareness has been limited, or used to be limited, because if you were seen as intelligent, if you were quiet and you were getting on with your work and you're well behaved, you were simply overlooked. And if you were the opposite, schools usually mislabeled behaviors. Instead of teachers asking, why is this child being overwhelmed, or why does this child overreact to certain situations, teachers would simply label the child as disruptive, lazy, naughty, or difficult to deal with. Genetics could also be a reason why you have lived your whole life without being diagnosed, because autism runs in families, and if your brother or sister presented in the same way that you did, or had similar traits and behaviors to you, that could mean you could have been overlooked, been seen just being normal. Maybe everyone in your house avoids eye contact. maybe everyone in your house is quite intense. When you're now in your adult life, when you're now married, you're going to school or you're in your workplace and you're behaving in this sort of, and you're presenting these sort of traits, it then brings the question of where you now look at yourself and think, am I okay? Am I being different? And people are looking at you differently. But to you, that behavior is normal because that's how you grew up and that's how everybody in your family household would present, and that's how they were. That is what was normal to you. If everyone shares the traits, no one sees it as different. Especially for people or adults who have ADHD, this can actually be more difficult to diagnose and deal with because usually ADHD and autism, their symptoms overlap. Because some people growing up were assessed to have ADHD but not autism. And some people actually have both. And over the years, you have probably learned to mask your symptoms. You've probably learned to copy people around you. How many times do you sit at a workplace or in a social group and you feel like you need to almost imitate what everyone else is doing? If I'm sitting like this, you would copy me. If I'm talking to you and I'm giving you eye contact because this is something that you've never had to do before, you might give me super intense eye contact, which then makes you feel weird and makes other people look at you like you're the awkward one out of the group. But it is not your fault. It's simply because you are now just masking your symptoms because you've grown older and you're realizing something is not okay here. I am different, but you can't just put a pin into it, like to identify exactly why are you different. One of the most common experiences that people who are diagnosed late with autism or ADHD is that they will always come in. At my clinic where I work, they usually come in and just say, you know what, I feel different. I feel like I've always been different. And different looks like maybe before a big meeting or maybe before you meet up with a friend, you rehearse conversations in your head because you feel like you don't want to embarrass yourself. You often feel exhausted after socializing. How many times do you go out and maybe it's not even a big event, but after you've been out talking to a lot of people, you feel mentally exhausted, that when you get in, you just want total silence. It could be that you have traits of ADHD and autism. And sometimes you struggle with small talk. But when it comes to something that interests you, and that's another thing with people with autism or people who are autistic, if they have a certain hobby or a certain interest that interests them, they can talk about that for hours, right? But they're also the sort of people that can easily get bored by small talk, because I always say to my patients or to people in general, people who are autistic are very, very smart. And you often probably struggle with change. You probably take things literally, and this has made you struggle in relationship or when you have to move house or when you have to start a new job. You often don't understand why do you struggle so much. And it could be that you have some of these traits of autism, because people with autism, they like structure. They don't like sudden changes. And if people around you don't understand that, they could label you as difficult. They could label you as, oh, you just have a really difficult personality to deal with. So you might have become a chameleon over the years. You might have become the champion of masking your symptoms over the years. And masking works until it doesn't. Because initially you will feel burnout, your anxiety will increase, and depression will definitely kick in. Because simply pretending to be someone else can be so exhausting. And now that you're an adult, work and relationships can feel overwhelming and tiring. And maybe sometimes even if you're at work, you struggle with office politics, you struggle with following simple instructions, and you probably feel drained by constantly being in meetings. You might look capable on the outside, but inside you are struggling intense overload, intense sensory overload. And not just in workspace, but even in relationships right now, you might be struggling with just like understanding your partner, or maybe your partner says they don't like a certain thing, but your mind or your brain struggles to understand simple instructions or reading cues. And this could lead to like arguments, relationships, someone saying to you, you're just too cold. But on the other hand, you're just simply trying to process the information. And maybe processing information for you could need a day or two, or maybe a week. Maybe processing information for you could need someone actually show you what they mean. And in another way, people would then say, oh, you're so dumb or you're so slow. But you're not. You're just different, and you just see the world from a different lens. You might also love deeply, but you show it differently. How many times have you been in a relationship and your partner says to you, I just feel like you don't love me. But then for you, you show that love differently by making sure they've got their shoes on, making sure they've got their socks on, or if the weather is cold outside, you're very literal, like you need to have a jacket on, making sure when they come home, the heating is on. Maybe that's how you show love, right? But then your partner on the other hand will think, well, you're not doing A, B, and C. And this is where understanding everyone's love language for an autistic person is very important, because if an autistic person doesn't understand fully your love language, they will show you love in their way or in the way that they understand. So what are some of the coping tips that you can help to implement in your life right now? If you're watching this video and you're saying, do you know what? That sounds like me and I'm undiagnosed. If you suspect that you're autistic but don't have a diagnosis right now, here's some of the ways you can help to support yourself. Reduce sensory overload intentionally. Things like noise cancellation headphones, sunglasses when you're outside, comfortable clothing. It's not dramatic. It's simply something that will help to calm your nervous system. But 2, build routines that protect your energy. So what do I mean by that? If you know what your routine is going to be like tomorrow, for example, if you have a job interview or if you're meeting up a friend for coffee, for someone who's autistic, you almost overstart thinking tomorrow before tomorrow comes. Maybe have a telephone call with the person that you're meeting before the meeting, or before the little date night or date day that you're supposed to do with a friend. Just mentally prepare yourself before the actual day comes, so that like on the actual day you're not overwhelmed, because again, sensory overload is one of the triggers for people who are autistic, makes them struggle with interactions. Number 3, I would definitely say schedule recovery time after social events. Don't wait until burnout, right? So if you've been out all day, whether it's at work, whether it's at a family gathering, or whether you've just been out and about and you feel so overwhelmed, it's important to just come home and just take care of yourself. If it means you need everything off, if it means your television has to be off, if it means that you need to read a book just to bring yourself back to a normal safe space, then do that. Don't come out from a social gathering or don't come out from an event where you felt overwhelmed and straight into the house you put loud music, you're scrolling on your phone, you're watching like very active things on your screen. It just keeps your brain going, because that's not almost helping you to kind of distress from the stresses of your day. So make separate time for yourself just to distress, relax, find yourself again, and get going. Now, another thing, learn your triggers. If you know something triggers you, or you know certain places trigger you, if you can avoid them, avoid them. But if you cannot avoid the places, then figure out how you can make that place or make that space adaptable to your needs. Whether it means you have to speak to your manager at workplace, whether it means that you have to have a separate office at work, whether it means that you have to attend certain events or certain places at a different time, do that. Learn your triggers, because it helps to reduce feeling overwhelmed. Connect with autistic voices. Listen to lived experiences. You might actually see yourself in someone else. There's so many autism foundation, trust, websites, groups that you can join. Just search online, autism groups near me. If you find them, even if it's online, even if it's a Zoom group, just join. And the last tip that I will give you is consider professional assessment. If you feel like you have had autism or ADHD all your life and you really feel like some of the things that I've highlighted in this video resonates with you, I will tell you the first thing to do is to contact your GP. Ask your GP to make a referral to your nearest mental health team. There's also other private bodies who are giving autism and ADHD assessment, but sometimes you might have to pay for that. So I would actually advise you that your first step that you have to do is speak to your GP and request to be referred to have an autism assessment. And I know realizing that you might be autistic as an adult can feel overwhelmed. It can almost feel like you've lived your life struggling with some of these difficulties, and now you are just identifying this. But don't be put off by finding this app now, because it just means now you can get the help that you need. And here's what I want you to hear, right? You were never too much. You were never not enough. You were simply navigating a world that was not designed for your brain. And like what I said before, people who are autistic are one of the most smartest people that I've come across. You might have a certain talent that you are good at, but you've always almost self-doubt yourself, thinking, that doesn't make sense. But if you find a way to tap into that skill that you know how to do, you'll be very surprised on how well you could do that thing. And being autistic is not a label, right? It's not something to be ashamed of. Everyone is different. Everyone's brain is different. If you're autistic, your brain probably works at like 100 miles an hour. You have all this flight of ideas, but I promise you, with the right support, you are able to put all those ideas in one box, and now you'll be able to pick up one idea at a time and look at it and see how you can process it in all different ways of your life. If this video has resonated with you, you are not alone. And hopefully this might just be the beginning of finally understanding yourself in a way no one ever has helped you before. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys!